Welcome to the Midnight Hour podcast, brought to you by Cemetery Records. Your host for the evening will be Evul, aka Grim Voorhees.
Alright, we're back. I am your host with the motherfucking most, and I have sex with ghosts. Evil Dead. I am back for part 3. This is the fucking trilogy right here. Fucking pinche Edgar. He's fucking survived all 3 movies right here now. He's back.
Hey, motherfucker, I ain't know you fuck Patrick Swayze, though.
Nah, bitch.
Yeah, you say you fuck Ghost.
Sexy, hot, dead bitches. Fucking Mr. Gritty, he demanded too much money to come back for the sequel, so we kicked him to the curb.
Fuck that shit. We don't do that shit, bro.
We ride, bitch. Anyway, now he'll be back. We were having a toss-up about what the fuck to talk about because we had some good stuff planned that we were going to talk about, but I'm going to wait and do those with the people who had planned to come do them with me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be a bitch and do that episode without them. But we got some good stuff planned. But other than that, we were having like a brain fart. I was like, what the fuck can we talk about to these fucking people out here for at least 45 minutes?
At least.
We got to give them something. We're going to talk about multiverse theory and alternate dimensions and parallel, whatever you call them, and also the Mandela effect, stuff like that. First of all, disclaimer, whatever we say on this show, we're not passing this off as 100% fact because we don't fucking know. We're just discussing and having fun with this bitch, so don't be like a fucking asshole, one that pushes their glasses up. Well, actually, and you fucking troll us and try to correct every little thing we fucking say. Fuck you.
Don't be a nasty nutty.
Ah, apparently, the beef is still fucking cooking, you know what I'm saying? It's still steaming. But we'll get on to that later. See, in an alternate dimension, there is no beef, you know what I'm saying? Like,
What's beef?
oh man, let's not get into that right now. But anyway,
It tastes more like chicken to me, bro.
speaking of that, we just had pot roast and it was pretty fucking good.
Hell yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Chelsea's fucking pot roast
And pot.
and weed, but and also not Dr. Pepper. All right, let's see. Let me get my notes here. Hold on. All right, first of all, I guess for Edgar, because he's a culo, he don't know the multiverse theory. And again, I'm no scientist. I will probably fuck this entire episode up and misquote stuff and say things that are totally incorrect. But we're just having a discussion here. This is not an information podcast for you to like learn anything. We're not trying to teach you nothing.
And if you learn something from this shit, I feel
feel
sorry
bad
for you.
I feel bad for you. Generally, the main thing we always talk about is life, how life is going, the mysteries of life, and the scientists. They're kind of like buzzkills. Like they don't want to know everything. They're like know-it-alls. They're like the little assholes that push their glasses up, like I was talking about. Well, actually, like, see, they want to know everything, which on one hand is cool, but on the other hand, I'm like, man, just let some stuff be mysteries, you know what I'm saying?
For real, chill, bro.
We're just fucking characters on this dirtball. Like, we're not meant to know everything. I don't give a fuck about knowing everything. They always kind of throw around all these different theories. I was researching this topic this evening, and there's like ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
it goes way into more depth than I was thinking. I was like, fuck, dude, I was just trying to find some liner notes or just some little tidbits and shit. Like, you can't just skim the surface. Like, I don't know, I could try. The main thing we always talk about is the what if. And again, these are all just theories, opinions, and just whatever. We don't know. But basically, we've had these discussions to where we always wonder, the life we're living now, where we're at up to the current point that you're alive, you always wonder, what if? Now, I broke it down to Rob a while back. I was basically saying, people don't realize how much power that they possess. And what I mean by that is that if certain things we're talking about are true or they hold any kind of relevance to being accurate, every decision you've made in your life, from the moment you could understand what making a decision is, you have weaved and helped put in and create a universe, the one that you now know. Basically, it all boils down to yes and no. So,
So in other words, is it like the butterfly effect?
It's related. It's completely related, I think, the butterfly effect. What that means, that dips more into, I'm guessing, like, the point they're saying about the butterfly effect is the littlest thing over here can cause a world fucking changing thing on somewhere else. That's what basically it means. So it's pretty much the same thing. And that goes back to what I'm saying about yes and no, how you can shape and mold your universe every day, every moment. That people don't realize that. Like, for example, where I'm currently at in my life, I have a lot of personal things, as everyone else does. My current status is, ultimately, a lot of it sometimes is out of your hands. But generally, your life is ran by you. You know, like generally, your decisions you make, it boils down to yes and no. Just for example, when I woke up today, everything I've done up to now, I molded the outcomes and created this universe of what I currently perceive as real-time existence, just by yes and no. I went and visited my mom today. We went to go eat. I went to go do this and that. I could have easily done the opposite. And so that's where the question comes in. What would have happened if I did the opposite? Like, 'cause Edgar, see, he's not real familiar with a lot of this stuff. So I was trying to tell him, like, trying to fill him in on some of the stuff we're talking about. I'm kind of starting back, kind of just plain and simple from the start, how we're talking about. So basically, if you can sit and ask yourself, do I cause my own death? Stuff like that.
Sort of like Final Destination type
It
of
goes
shit.
into that kind of lore. They built their whole franchise off of this kind of thing, about predestination versus free will versus, all that ties into this.
What if? It's
Yeah.
all what if.
That all amalgamates, or how you say it, into what I'm talking about, how people don't realize the power they have. Now, if I want to improve my situation, it's up to me. Like, it's like an RPG, man. Like, you choose your fucking destiny, kind of the old books and shit. You choose your destiny. That's how you shape and mold the universe. So, like, right now, back to what I was saying was, right now, I'm generally free. I can get up, go anywhere I want to go, anything I want to do. Now, I can literally change the forever course of this existence just by deciding, left field, I'm going to go down the street and just shoot someone. Now, it may not be a very big ripple, but it could be, depending on what you do. But I could go down the street, shoot some motherfucker. He's fucking out the game, you know what I'm saying? So I immediately have caused a tangent on his life and everything
people
rippling
around.
out from him. I changed my whole life. I ripple out from me. And that goes back to what they say. Was what you did meant to happen 100%, or was it all pure randomality?
I think it was all 50-50.
See, it's just, that's the endless debate, is that we don't know. Scientists could be looking at us, or a group of people talking about the same thing we're all talking about now, and they could all be like, y'all are all fucking morons. It's nothing like that. It's like this over here. And it could be. If you go online and look and research, there are so many different levels to this, to discussion and theories of all the things, the way they perceive quote-unquote reality. But ultimately, if you romanticize it and just want to have a casual, pretty cool conversation about it in general, you talk about the what-ifs, about alternate lives. To where, here's an example again. I can remember, my whole timeline from when I was a kid up to now. I don't mean every day, literally. What I'm saying is, I've lived my life up to this moment. Well, back when I was 16, 17, me and my cousins and everybody, we were all into wrestling. I was hardcore into pro wrestling. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. So we used to do the backyard wrestling, the whole thing. This is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we thought, this is what we wanted to be for our life plan, to become wrestlers and make that be a part of our lives. My cousin went to the school, did the training. We were tried to be as tied with it as much as we could. We go to local shows, got in good with the promoters. We got to be plants in the audience at their film shows, and we did a lot of shit. But it got to where I decided not to, because for all you wrestling fans out there, like Darren Drozdoff, I think that's his name, at some point he had gotten a running powerbomb done on him, and it broke his neck, I guess, and it paralyzed him from the neck down. And at that moment, I was like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was when I finally stopped to think about the long term. I was like, do I really want to do this? I ain't saying about living your life in fear, but it's just kind of stepping back and be like, man, even though it's something I really love, you have to weigh the pros and cons. And it took that for me to really think about the long term. And I was like, nah, I don't know if I want to do wrestling. And so I decided to do music. And I've talked about that before on the other podcasts, but there were little deciding moments where, coming back to what we're talking about yes and no, timelines, picking your path, where I can precisely pinpoint specific moments in my life where I have stood at the tangent. Now I sit and laugh with my cousins like, man, what if we would have made it? Like, in another life, in another timeline, is it possible that I did say, fuck this, I'm going to stick with wrestling, and I did, up till now or whatever, stay with wrestling and never did music? And it blows my mind. It's like, in a fun way, you can try to guess and try to think what would it be like, but really you can never know, because there's so many fucking variables that you can never know.
Not only that, with that timeline, you probably would have never met a lot of the people that you know now.
That brings up a good point. Like, as far as pinpoints of exact moments when you look back on them and say, okay, those were defining moments of my life that changed my tangent. For example, like what he said, the time when I was in school. At that time I was wrestling, we were doing things. We were dabbling with, the whole ICP Juggalo thing, but it didn't really take off. It was there always in the background with us, but we were still wrestling. And so up until around 2000, once I met Scotty D and all the group, like we talked about the other day, that was when the real tangent split off. And it kind of, we were still wrestling at that time. We were back at wrestling with a lot of the dudes there. But really that time, that's when it split off. We went and did music. But I always wonder, what would have fucking happened if for some reason I just said, hey, I'm still a fan of this kind of stuff, but I just want to do wrestling? And I always wonder, would I have made it? Or did I make it in a way?
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying, I got sidetracked when I was trying to make my point. It was about meeting people. And about, for example, I won't say no names, but there's been certain girls in my life that, you know, everybody's met women through their whole lives, dudes, and vice versa, that you meet specific people, you're like, man, for certain people, I'll always hold a certain thing, you know, inside.
Yeah, Evil has feelings.
I do have feelings. Well, my friend Spider that passed away, okay, he was a pretty big piece of the glue that held a lot of our group together. You know, like, after he died, I'm not saying like how Cody B was actually saying, he wasn't the catalyst that really split off our group totally, but it was, once he died, that really kind of chiseled away a lot of the shit the way that where our group was, and everyone went their separate ways, and the timeline shifted, and we went to a whole different thing. Now, had Spider, he died of an accident. He didn't die of, you know, natural causes or something that you really say, well, I guess it couldn't have been avoided, but he died of an accident. So that question comes up again. What if he hadn't died? You know, what if in 2007, was it August, he died on August 26th, 2007.
Shit, that's in a couple of days, bro.
I'm not trying to get into the private business of what happened to him, but the circumstances and how he died go into what I'm saying, to where, say that was reversed or say it was avoided altogether. I sit and thought about this many times since then. What would have happened? Like, would he have survived? And if he would have survived, what ripple effect would we feel from that? Like, no, the reason why I bring up him is because some of the people that I was talking about, the main tangent about people that I met, feeling wise and all that, I would have never met them had he stayed alive. Like, really, I think about it, like, I don't think I would have met, it would have wiped out an entire, up to now, it would have wiped out an entire demographic of people that I would have never met, pretty much, like, if he hadn't, you know, died. And that's crazy. It's a fucked up trade-off that you think of. You're like, not to get philosophical or biblical or whatever you call it, like, but you wonder, okay, say you got this person, you know, I consider him a loved one. He was like my brother. I would say, okay, in this timeline, it bothers me, you know, it's like, he's not here, you know? And you think about those times that, man, I wish that was still like that and he was still here and all this. But then you think, well, look at all these other people I wouldn't have. And it's a fucked up thing to think about. You're like, it's the true thing about trade-offs. Like that's the biggest price to pay of free will, is you have to deal with the trade-offs, like, of free will. Like, you know, would I trade him for all them and vice versa? It's a fucked up thing. As you sit and think, okay, well, say if there are multiple outcomes that exist. Like, basically, I always said, if this reality right now, if it exists, then the other ones have to exist too. And you go, okay, so how many are there? Is there a certain number? Is there an ironclad number of them? Or is there truly infinite? Like, depending on how anal you want to be about the decision branching and all that. Like, right now, I walked into this room, I picked up this Dr. Pepper. Do you want to be that anal about it? Or I didn't pick the Dr. Pepper up? You know, are those literally creating that many universes? Is that one universe still existing, even though I didn't do it? You know, it depends how anal you want to get, but if you want to generalize it to just a certain number of universes, like on was the Avengers movie where Doctor Strange scanned the universe, he scanned the dimensions, and he said he went through 14 million something universes, and of course, for dramatic effect, he said there's only one where it would get the outcome they wanted, to where they would win. Well, kind of in hand with that, you think, okay, say I had the power to modify this dimension or do like that. It's not time travel. See, the dimension thing, it doesn't have anything to do with time travel. It has to do with just you're still running on the same time. It's just you're jumping lanes. Like, think of them like train tunnels. That's how I generalize it. And every decision you make, it splits off and you take a different tunnel. And so if you could jump tunnels and do the question you said, is there a way for me to be able to save Spider and not lose the people that I've gotten because of the tangent and the timeline that made me go that way and meet them instead? I don't know. Because, I mean, I'm assuming there is, or that night, he didn't die that night. And for somehow, he went on, our storylines went on together, and then somehow I still met the people that I know today, but I just don't see it. Like, I don't see this unless, and then that would dip into, I think, the whole fate thing about some things are truly meant to be. Like, if there are people that you're truly meant to meet, then you could go into that. Yeah. But again, that goes into the whole philosophical thing or just general discussion, you know, like, as far as the religious side of it, I don't know. Like, I'm a neutral. Like I said, what did Cody call me? He called me a centralist or something. Yeah. I choose not to pick sides because I just don't know. It's not that I'm too scared to make a definite choice. It's not that. I just choose. I'm like Spock. I try to use logic and say, look, man, it ain't fair for me to just make this decision. That's what it all comes back to faith. How the whole religious thing says it's all a matter of faith. You leave the gray area to faith. You don't know. So that's generally the big part of it. But as far as the science nerd or the side of you that wants to sit there and daydream about this shit, it could go on forever, man. Like, I know Spider's one. My dad's another one. My dad died in 2009. He died of cancer. He died of a weird type of cancer. Like, my dad was always healthy. For people that a lot of my friends, some of my friends knew him. Rob knew him. Certain ones knew him. He was totally healthy. He died at 60, but my dad didn't even look 60. Like, people always joke with me. They say, "Man, you're like fucking Dracula." They're like, "You don't age." People that knew me from 20 years ago, they go, "You look exactly the fucking same." And I think what it is, hopefully, I guess maybe it's from my dad, because he aged really well. And I never really did drugs. And again, this is no reflection on anyone out there. Live your life, do what the fuck you want to do. I ain't judging you. I'm just saying, I think what it is, I never really did a lot of drugs. We were just talking about that, about certain characters. They do certain things, and you're like, damn, they're that age. And you go, I'm that age. It goes into that whole debate, And that's, again, that goes hand in hand with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The multiverse. Like, had I done this, then I would be this. It's interesting, and it's neat, it's just an infinite thing that you could always sit here and talk about. But what I was saying was, my dad, he had a cut on his foot. This is for people that work in this industry. Believe it or not, like he was working in the kitchen at what school was that? TCU over there in the kitchens at the college. He had just a regular cut on his foot, and working in kitchens, your feet get wet, and the whole thing. Well, he had been working with wet feet, and somehow that little wound just festered, and it changed, and it turned into like a cancer, and he didn't know. Just too much time went by, and they said if they would have caught it, he could have been saved. But again, that goes into was that meant to happen? And so it went to his lymph nodes, and then it just goes on, and I lost my dad. And so I always think with this whole Mandela thing, with this, it goes into some conspiracy type shit about the Mandela effect and all that. It's an interesting fucking theory. That shit's badass. Like, really to think about, all this is totally fascinates me. And so the point I'm saying is, like, there are particular people that I always wonder about. Those are definite tangent moments. I'm like, could I have saved them? Could I see what it was like if they didn't leave?
But like you said, also, is like it could be scary as fuck too, because you don't know what the outcome could be.
Mm-hmm. Well, then it goes into the whole most played out scenario about if you could go back in time, could you kill Hitler and what would happen? I don't see this as a time thing though. I see it's a lane thing. I guess it kind of is, as far as you say, if I can go back. But then with the Avengers, again, that goes into the whole nother theory about time travel. They say you can't change anything. They say, how do you explain it? He said, your current present is your present. If you're meant to go back in time, then that means the past will then become your future. Yep. And he says that when you do that, because you can't change anything. I think all he was saying was you cause a tangent. I think that's what the movie was saying.
It's a ripple effect.
Like, it goes back to where you can't kill Hitler. It's like, as you're standing here, you already have your answer. Like, say you have a question before you leave. You say, okay, can I go back and kill Hitler? Because where I'm currently at, this is the current history of what happened when he died and all he did. So I'm going to go back and change it. Well, I think you have your answer right there. Because it ain't like Back to the Future, where he says you're on a locked-in timeline and you concrete change that timeline. I think, like they said, once you leave, you cannot go back home, in a sense. Like, here's a funny theory about Back to the Future, as far as tangents and whatnot. They say that Marty McFly, the Marty that you know in the movie, now in their rules of time travel, it's a locked timeline where they change one thing in the past, it affects the whole thing. So basically, when Marty went back in time, when he come back to the future, to the new outcome where they're rich and everything's great, because in the beginning of the movie everything sucks, the car sucks, and they're all poor and they're just ass, whatever. Well, when he comes back, he don't know what's going on, because they said literally what he did was he murdered, in a sense, he murdered the other Marty. The innocent other Marty that knew that timeline, he got erased from existence. Because this Marty, from a different timeline, he pushed him out of the way and just took his place.
Rick and Morty.
And it goes into Rick and fucking Morty. Rick and Morty. I just finished watching the fucking Rick and Mortys. I had never seen none of them. But someone was telling me, hey man, they deal with a lot of time travel. Not really time travel. I think they pretty much deal with multiverse theory.
Yeah, multiverse.
So I watched all 3 seasons. I don't even think they even fucked with time travel at all. It was all about multiverse. I might be wrong.
They had to fuck around with a little bit of time travel.
I don't remember which one.
When it broke into 4 pieces.
I remember that one. They had to get the timeline back in sync.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really time travel. He was talking about. That was kind of a confusing, but he was talking about how the main timeline it was out of sync or something. I remember that episode now.
But it kind of falls into time travel in a way.
I guess so, but I think what they really push in on is the multiverse. That's their whole gimmick, is all the Mortys, all the Ricks, and for example, if that has some kind of relevance to being true, that goes back into what we're talking about. You always wonder, who am I in another life? Like me personally, when I was a teenager, classic story. When you're young, you're a teenager, you're struggling, you're pissed off in your mind, socially, you have problems, people fuck with you. You know, I was in a bad place. I tried to be a good person, but by the time I was in high school, I was ready to murder somebody because of how I was treated. And so, because of certain things, at some point back then, Rob introduced, hey man, let's go check out this band, Insane Clown Posse. And we went and listened to their CD in the store, and I got the humor, and that was a tangent. If that hadn't happened, and I had stayed on the other path, I probably, and again, it sounds cliche, I would have ended up probably in jail or no telling what, because I was on a fucked up path. And that's why I owe them a lot, because I'm like, man, they helped me see that it's okay to not be fucking perfect. Yeah. Like, if you're a scrub, own that shit. Like, it's okay to be fucking broke. I mean, it sucks to be poor, but it's okay to not sit there and want to kill yourself over it. Like, you know, be you. You know, if you ain't got all this fancy shit, who cares? Be happy, man. Like, try to find a way to get through life and be happy. And they helped me let go of a lot of that fucking anger.
And that's one thing I do respect about Juggalos, though, man. Even though I do talk a lot of shit about them, but I do respect them.
Yeah, is that, you know, life is fucking crazy, man, and it may sound stupid to sit there and think about that. How you're daydreaming, that's like the ultimate daydream, is to wonder what if, and that's not healthy. It ain't about that. Like, as far as me, I don't sit here and harp on, man, I bet I had it so much better somewhere else. I'm not harping on that. I'm just talking about, this is just a general discussion about what if, you know. Edgar, he said in 2006, he was living in California, and he had certain things, certain yeses and nos, culminated to him deciding, hey, I'm going to come, of all places, to Texas. And just that, if you really want to be anal about it, there's an infinite number of branches. He could have went anywhere else. There's scenarios. Now the question is, do those scenarios exist? Did he go to New York, North Dakota? Did he go to fucking Oklahoma here? Did he go to this town, Oklahoma? It goes in an infinite number of possibilities.
Well, I could have still came to Texas and been in a different city.
It can blow your mind. And that goes into the whole thing of like, you know, mind blown shit, like
Could've
all
gone to
the
Houston,
variables,
man.
all the calculations. But ultimately, it wound to this moment. But if he hadn't, we'd have never met this fool, and we'd have a whole different thing. Like, it's crazy, the snowball effect about which direction you want to roll that bitch.
To be honest, bro, most likely if I stayed in California, probably would have been dead or in prison.
And you probably are. That's the thing. Like, in the multiverse theory, you are dead. Like, here's something interesting. I talked about this somewhere at some point about maybe my book. Me and Rob, a year or so ago, we had wrote a book about, because we were doing the Rob and Evul show, and we were traveling and doing like haunted locations, or, you know, the whole thing. It's on YouTube. We haven't done it in a while. I want to be able to get situated where we can do it again. But we wrote a book about our lives, because me and Rob are the same age. He's 3 months. Rob's about 3 months younger than me. But we've pretty much known each other our whole lives. And we've had some crazy shit happen, you know, through our lives. We talk about all this same stuff about how the shit we've dealt with. And we basically talk about from 1980 up to 2000. That was going to be the first book. And then we would do a book from 2000 up to the current time. And there's just so many fucking tangents of things. And I counted the moments I knew that I almost died in this timeline. Like, legit, like I almost drowned once or twice. I was almost electrocuted to death. Almost got hit by a fucking car.
God damn.
Almost ran off a fucking cliff. There's some crazy ones. Some of them you'd be like, fuck you, you're full of shit. But they're legit things, like where I almost fucking died. And I always think, well, I did. If this theory holds true, I did. And those other timelines, I died 20 fucking years ago. That blows my fucking mind. For example, when I was a kid, this is back in the 80s, probably 89, 88 or 89, about 8 or 9, My Uncle Wesley, he had bought, I was living in White Settlement with my mom and my stepdad. My little brothers weren't born yet. And my uncle had bought a house in the next block over, and his daughter and him was staying there. And so he would try to take her out and do fun shit, and she didn't really hang out with a lot of people. So he took me with him a lot. We hung out a lot. So we went to Six Flags, done a bunch of shit. Well, over here in Lake Worth, there's a little area, there's a little lookout point in certain places over by Lake Worth Bridge, and there's by the island. You can go down there and go down the hills and go down to the water and fish. Well, back then, we were fishing one day. We went there and we were fishing, and him and my cousin, they were down at the bottom. I got bored, and I wandered off. And I can't remember. This, again, you're going to sound full of shit, but I swear to God, I swear on my life or whatever you say, that it happened. I was wandering through these little trails, up, kind of going back up to the top. And for whatever reason, I took off running. I was running down this fucking little trail. And I didn't see up ahead, it was a fucking dead end. It was a drop off. I was like, oh, fuck. And like in the movies, I put the brakes on, I'm trying to stop, and I was sliding, and I went over the fucking cliff. And then, okay, now here's the part of this cornball. It sounds corny, but it's true. I can't explain it. In the natural motion of sliding off this fucking cliff, and it was pretty fucking high. It was like way down there. There's rocks, from what I can remember. I remember bits and pieces. That was a long time ago. But in the natural motion of going off this cliff, I threw my hands up, kind of going off a fucking cliff, and I can't explain it. Both my hands grabbed a branch. Didn't even try to. Like, the branch literally just fell into my hands. Like, I didn't even know it was there. I can't explain it. I just, in the natural motion, and I caught this fucking branch. And I'm sitting there swinging over this fucking hole. I was like, what the fuck? And I'm sitting there tripping. So I swung myself backwards, and I caught the ledge. I bounced myself, and I was like, holy fuck. I almost had a heart attack, and I ran back, and I didn't want to tell my uncle, but I told him it was too crazy, and he got ultra fucking pissed, But I would have literally died. Like, yeah. That was high fucking cliff. There's rocks down there. I'd have been fucked. So in this theory, I did die. What if I did die somewhere else, some other timeline? I dropped out the game, and from my death, not saying I'm ultra special, but from my death, imagine if I had died back then, it would have changed everything. As far as my family, my friends, it just goes on and on. And then another one almost got electrocuted. So got hit by a fucking car. Like, there's been, I don't try to get into religion stuff, but in some of these moments, I think there was something, because there was something at work, man. Like, there was some kind of force. I call them the forces. I always tell Edgar about forces. Well, in these scenarios, like, it was so ridiculous. I'm like, man, it feels like there was something working, something telling me, nah, man, this ain't not yet. Chill. Like, I was walking across this little intersection in White Settlement. You got the lanes that you go one direction. You got 2 lanes that go one direction. Then you got the 3 lanes usually coming the other direction. You got the 2 main lanes, and you have a turning lane. Well, I'm at this red light, and the sign comes on for me to walk, so I'm crossing these lanes, and I'm getting across all the lanes except the last turning lane that would make you just turn the corner. Something I do not fucking know. I cannot explain it. Something told me stop. Just left field. And I stopped. There was a car right there, but that turning lane was empty. I stopped in front of the car. I don't know why. And as soon as I fucking stopped, like a car shot by, like that bitch had to be going, I think it was an old lady. She had to be going at least fucking 50, 60 miles. Ridiculous speeds in a turning lane. Like,
bro, that could have killed you. Like,
it literally sucked my shirt. Like, this woman was literally a foot from me. Like, if I would have stepped, I'd been out the game, son. Like, Final Destination style. You ever seen Meet Joe Black? Bouncing off the fucking windows and shit. Like, I'd have been out the fucking game. And something told me, stop. I can't explain it. Like, that bitch literally just kept going, and I would have been out the fucking game. Yeah. So, in another timeline, I did die. And I always wonder that, if this is true, if I did die, what happened? It blows your fucking mind, but it's interesting. You kind of obsess over this shit. And there's been several times where I've almost died. It just goes on and on. I'm sure Edgar's had them. We all have had moments like that, those little tangent moments,
Shit, I was born dead, bro.
Born dead. Project Born.
Like, literally, bro, like, the umbilical cord was around my neck.
It's crazy shit.
They had to open up my mom so they could take me out.
Yep.
I was suicidal since then, bro.
Suicidal since birth. I was the worst. Like, Well, with that too, like I had a sister. Her name was Amy. I was born in 1980. My sister Jessica, she was born in 1975, and I think Amy was born, or before her a little bit. I'm not sure. She died at birth, and my mom told me about her. You know, there where she's buried and all this and that. But I always wondered too. I go, what if she had lived? There's a whole nother fucking life out there, where I grew up with both of them, and it trips me out. You know, my sister Jessica, she was 5 years different from me, and she died in 2013. She was 5 years older than me, and we our whole lives were together, you know. And I can remember all these moments and all these things we did, and then as we got older, we kind of went apart a little bit. I was doing my own thing. Of course, she did hers. She had a bunch of kids. I never had kids, and you know, she died in an accident. You know, that's the same thing too. I always wondered, what if I have dreams about that kind of shit. I'm like, what would happen if she was still here? It'd be totally different, man. It's crazy.
It's crazy though, but I've actually had dreams where our brother and sister have been killed.
Yep.
And I know how that shit fucking feels, bro.
Yeah, you know. It's a rough thing. Like with the Mandela thing, how let's get into that for a minute. Like the Mandela effect, what that means is for Edgar, like he's not real. We've never really talked about this kind of stuff. The Mandela effect, people generally say, oh, it's just a matter of false memories or a mass. People just remember something wrong. Like for example, Darth Vader, I'm your father, or Luke, I'm your father, whatever. It was never said. It's just a mass misremembering, I guess, of something that was said. Or like the classic "Beam Me Up, Scotty." It was never said in the show, and I can get that. I can get the whole. They generally just they generalize something. It becomes trendy, and it just gets skewed a little bit, and that becomes fact. And people say, "No, you're wrong." No, if you go back, it's just those little ironies. I get that, but then there's some things that it blows my fucking wig. Like some lady apparently a couple years ago, she coined the term Mandela effect. What that means is that back in 1982, I think it was, Nelson Mandela was in prison. Was he in Africa or somewhere?
No, South Africa.
He was in prison for whatever. I don't know the history of this guy. He looks kind of like Morgan Freeman. and anyway,
something like that.
At some point where basically it was brought up that because he had just died in 2015, I think it was, and that's what happened. It was around that time they coined the term because thousands and thousands of people said, "Nah, man." They said we remember. They said we remember this guy dying in 1982 in that fucking prison, and people. That's been the argument. People are like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong.
Because they said it was even in the news and shit.
And people will fight you to the death saying, no, this dude died. I remember them saying he died in the fucking 80s. Now let's step back. From my point of view, I don't pick sides. I don't say either side's wrong. Now from this side, they would say, no, it's just a mass misremembering of facts. Or they say, you know, it's just y'all are just misunderstood. Like you remembered it wrong. But then on this other side, you're like, okay, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's play devil's advocate here. Like, if they feel this and there is any kind of credence to it, then explain it. Well, then that's what this comes into. That Mandela, they're basically saying that you got these lanes, like I told you. You have realities, you have universes of things that have happened. Well, they're saying, I read some articles about certain things where, again, there's so many fucking theories but this one particular one, they said there's about, I think it was 6 to 12 universes. Now this goes into conspiracy territory. I'm just paraphrasing stuff that I've read. There's one theory about that the government, again, that they know about the other universes, and that
Stargate,
and that what they've been doing is those particle accelerators, I think it was, and all these things. They're trying to create these black holes. There's something like basically they have the technology where they know about the other universes, and they want us to be the only universe. But they basically have this. We're going to get y'all before you get us. And so what they've been doing is they've been collapsing those universes. And they said that the universes, how they exist close to each other. And that goes into deja vu. That goes into those moments where they say, oh, deja vu is when two parallel yous have lived events, and those are the moments where they get the closest. That's why you feel like I've done this before. I went to a movie, brand new movie. As soon as I leave the theater, I say I feel like I've already seen it before.
Yeah,
it happens to me all the time. But what I was saying was they're trying to supposedly destroy all these other universes, and so that's what they've done. Is they've destroyed several, if not all of them, pretty much, and leaving us to only one. So that's what's happening, causing the Mandela effect. Is that basically, you got these two lanes. Now, these lanes, they can be created, they can be modified, they can be whatever. Think of them as like kind of water. How you pour water on the ground, you'll see two separate streams of water reaching out, and if they touch each other, they absorb and become one. Think of it like that. So basically, they're saying that's what happened. So say there's a particular item that you've known your whole life, say a product, a food product. I'll give you an example of one about why I think there might be something to the Mandela thing. My particular example about this universe thing, about why I think that's might be some credence to that, about how we are merging with other universes and not knowing it. So literally, ironically, Edgar could technically be this version of Edgar. I know this is crazy, but from a neutral standpoint, Edgar could technically be from another fucking universe, another version of outcomes. And at some point in our last couple years, our universes merged, and he seamlessly came into ours, and we don't even know it because the changes were so minimal, he's never noticed it. And here's an example of something that I did notice. Okay.
It's because I'm Mexican, isn't it?
I was talking to my Uncle George, and we talk about all this stuff all the time. We're talking about the Mandela thing. Here's interesting. I was telling him about this, about the food thing, about how food changes, the names, the logos, and well, the one I had started to bring up was there's a product of beans. I remember these beans, them fucking images are burned in my fucking brain since I was a kid, because I used to go to my grandma's house a lot and stay with her over there. She always had canned goods in the cabinet, and
Yeah.
And so I remember specific memories of this brand of bean. Well, now they're called Van Camps. They're Van Camps pork and beans.
Yeah.
Well, I remember these fucking beans called Van de Camps. I think it was Van D.E. Camps. And I remember the logo, Van de Camps beans.
You know what? I think I remember like that too, bro.
And this fucking, now, I remember this fucking logo because I remember them fucking, because they were always up in the cabinets, because she always had canned peaches and random shit. So I remember, it's just a ongoing memory from when I was a kid. I remember Van de Kamp's beans. And I was telling my Uncle George about this, I was trying to give him examples of stuff that they say has changed. And before I even told him, he mentioned it too. He was like, oh yeah, like Van de Kamp's beans. I go, yeah, now they're saying it's called Van Camps. And they said it's never been called Van de Camps from the inception of their company.
Yeah.
I go, that was the one that blew my mind.
The one that blew my mind was the peanut butter, Jif.
Yep, they're saying it was
It's
Jiffy.
Yeah.
Is it
remember-
Jif now or Jiffy?
It's Jif now.
And-
It used to be Jiffy.
Yeah,
I remember it was Jiffy.
And
back
people are ready to fight, say, no, motherfucker, that shit was Jiffy.
Yeah.
Well, that's all, like the Berenstain Bears, those are the most
Yeah.
generic ones that we've seen. But no, the Van de Kamps is what hit me. I said, dude, I remember Van de Kamp's beans.
And the one that, another thing that I do remember, people say I'm fucking crazy about this one, but you know how Shaq has that movie where he's a genie?
Yeah.
Those actually, I remember one where this,
Sinbad.
Was-
That's
yeah.
another one with the Berenstain. They said that it was called Shazam or something like that.
Yeah,
Kazam. And the movie don't exist. They said Kazam exists.
Shazam is the one that,
But Shazam, they said he never made the movie. And again, false memory. Is it just a false misremembering of that? But the Van de Kamps is what hit me. I'm like, fuck y'all. I know what the fucking logo looked like. I remember this. Why would I remember Van de Kamps? Why would I remember that specific name? D Camps. Like, why would I remember that if it, and my uncle remembered exactly, and I didn't even say it to him yet. He said it before I could even say it.
and then Fruit Loops also, the way it was spelled.
I heard about that. It goes on and on. But in relation to that, what I mean is, say it's real. What that means is that when I was a kid, in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, when these memories happened, just give me the benefit of the doubt. Say that Van de Kamps did exist, not Van Camps. Van de Kamps existed, for the way I remember it. I'm not crazy. Just say that means at some point in the past, my universe merged. Now, say right now I've had a guy here sitting here, and he swears, fuck you, it's always been Van Camps. And we were ready to fight over this. Then what that means is, hypothetically, that means our two universes at some point merged together. And so he's remembering the memories from the other universe. Now what happens is, the moment those universes merge, there's no evidence no more. That shit disappears. So there's no proof. I can't prove that Van de Kamps, like on Titanic, he only exists in my memory. Like, you literally, for some reason, however the glitch is, your brain didn't erase from your brain. Existence changed, but you carry those memories from the other dimension.
And like you said, that it's probably because the government is over here fucking destroying all these.
And that goes back to that theory I'm talking about how they say they're destroying the universes and that we're just absorbing the ones closest to us. And it's interesting. I'm not saying that's fact. I'm just telling you stuff that I've read. Again, I'm just throwing this out here because it's interesting to discuss. But the Van de Kamp's, if there's anyone out there that knows what the fuck I'm talking about, Van de Kamp's beans, that was the one. That's my highlighted one that I'm like, that's the linchpin right there. Like, it makes me think, damn, because that one, it's hard for me to swallow that it's always been Van Kamp's. It's like, why would I throw the word D in there, D-E, whatever? Like, that's just too unique.
Yeah.
And my uncle remembered the same thing, but we're both insane. Like now, like it never happened. It never existed. Like, nah.
Is that like the theory that they said that what's the name? Paul McCarthy died.
I guess that could be another theory. They say he died. That's in the conspiracy thing about he died. And that goes back to kind of what I'm saying was, in the essence of all this stuff, that's kind of scary to think that, okay, then if all that's true, if people are fucking with our universes and this shit's merging, how do I know one day my dad's not going to come knock on my door?
When you already remembered it, he passed away.
That fucking bothers me.
Pet
Like,
Cemetery type of shit right there.
No, not Pet Cemetery. It's just
like the remake that we just finished watching.
horrible ass remake. No, what I'm saying is like, who's to say that can't happen?
Yeah.
Who's to say that my dad don't know that he didn't die, and that somehow, as crazy as that sounds, that he can come knock on my fucking door, and I'm like, this is impossible. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you're dead. And he's like, what are you talking about? You know, that's a scary thought. That's a more cranked up, romanticized, extreme example of a definite change. But again, it goes back, and I told you, there's infinite fucking, depends on how anal you want to be about it, there's infinite possibilities of universes out there from the most minute chain. Me moving my finger this way, and there's a universe where I move my finger this way. That's how anal it gets. If that's the case, then that's what I'm talking about. These changes are so minute that we don't notice them. But then those are the examples of the ones we do. We're like, hey, motherfucker, wait a minute. I don't remember that. That's some scary shit to think about, man. I don't know, man. But that creeps me out, man. Like, I always wondered, what if that could be like a movie, you know what I'm saying? Like, what if that happened? Like, how would your brain process? Like, you ask yourself, okay, Edgar right now, in real time, he exists right now, from what I'm seeing. He exists. Now, say if he died tomorrow, God forbid, then I have to sit here and be in the moment of, I now live in the moment, technically I live in the new universe where Edgar does not exist. And my brain would have to process that, like with Spider. I right now cannot imagine right now. I can't even mentally put myself in the feeling of knowing that he would be alive in front of me right now. My brain can't even calculate it. That's like me saying, try to imagine a living, breathing, smelling, whatever dinosaur in front of you. You can't. Like, my brain just can't process it.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard thing. But imagine if he is out there. It's kind of a good thing, like going back to the belief thing, like it kind of helps me think, well, he's not really gone. Like somewhere else that accident didn't happen. I'm happy to know it may have completely changed. We may have not been friends no more, whatever it costs. As long as I know he's out there somewhere, I'm happy.
Well, like they say that really when we die, we're just energy moving to a different.
That could be another thing too.
This
universe. You ever seen the motherfucking The One with Jet Li? We pull some Jet Li shit, son. Like, or basically he says well, in that one, it goes back to what I said. There was a concrete certain number of universes. They said there was 200 and something or whatever there was. And he was jumping timelines, or however he was doing, they had the technology to jump universes. So he was going through and killing the other version of himself because in their lore, the energy of that person, of you, like, okay.
Looper?
That's a weird movie. Well, what I mean is, okay, you ask yourself the question, okay, what makes me me? Am I special? Versus the next person. You go, okay, they say, oh, you're special. If you die, no one can ever replace you. Okay, but then you go, hey, well, if the multiverse theory is true, then that makes me not special because that means there's hundreds of me.
Yep.
And they go, well, what does that mean about my individuality? Well, I think that's what the one kind of talks about, how it says you are still you. Like, they're all you, so it's still you. You're out there, so it doesn't take away from your specialness, your individual specialness. It's just that if you die in this timeline, whatever you are goes to the next one, and you merge back with the other ones, and you just keep going. So that's kind of cool, you know. But that goes into the whole religious thing. You're like, where do we go if we die? You know, what if that is the case? What if... I always laughed. I told Edgar, I was like, what if after you die, you just live your life over again. Like from the moment you die, they say the tunnel of light is you being born again. And for me, it'd be 10:01 p.m., 1980, April 24th, 1980 downtown, and I start again. But here's the clinger. It makes sense. This theory is just a funny theory. That would explain deja vu. It would explain the multiverse theory. It would explain all that. Because if I die now and I go back and I'm reborn, now I have a whole new chance to say yes and no differently. Like, think of it like switches, just on and off, ones and zeros, yes and no. Yes, go this way. No, go this way. No, go this way. Yes, go this way. That led me up to this point. But when I die and go back, I have a whole new chance to do it again. So means I can live my life completely differently. And that's where I think the multiverse theory would come in to explain that. And then deja vu would be the moments when you happen to choose the same answers. And you got to those little points. And then the walls kind of rub just a little bit and make you think, oh, wait a minute, I've done this before. It'll blow your mind. Yeah. It's just a funny little theory. I'm not saying it's true, but that's interesting because then you think, you know what? My family that's died, I will see them again. Not so much in the way y'all think about a religious thing, but I will see them again, or I will re-experience being with them again if I was able to do this all over again. Yeah. Or if in another timeline, they're still there. So I don't know what you believe. I'm not telling you what to believe. Again, I'm on the fence. I choose to be on the fence about things. I choose to say, this Muslim guy over here, whatever the fuck he believes, I choose to not tear down what he believes and say, oh, he's fucking retarded. This is what it is. I choose to not do that. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm just a collection of meat and fucking blood and whatever, and I'm on this timeline just for a little bit, then I go in a hole. Yeah. Like, I don't fucking know. So I'm not going to shit on someone else. I don't know. It's just my personal choice. It's like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be closed-minded. Like, you cannot be selective in your open-mindedness. Like, if you really want to be an open-minded person, then you can't shut down any possibilities. Now, I know there's sometimes that's kind of foolish. I don't want to say, hey, give me that needle, I'll shoot some crack. I'm not saying that. Like, you know what the fuck I'm saying. Like, you just kind of be open to hear other sides out, as crazy as you may personally think they are. Because ultimately, we don't know.
Not only that, you might learn something from it.
Yeah, like, wow.
Unless it's coming from Nasty Nutty, then it's...
Why do you want to deny yourself knowledge? Whether it's useless knowledge. Yeah. Like, I read random shit all the time. My friend C used to tell me, dude, I'd bust out with some random-ass trivia, some information. Hey, do you know this about Dr. Pepper? He's like, what the fuck? He's like, how do you always know there's just these random tidbits of information? It's just useless information, but it's interesting. I always try to absorb knowledge. I don't want to shut myself off. It's like being a hateful person and not wanting to fuck with this demographic of people over here. I'm like, nah, don't shut it down, man. Maybe in another life, I was a bastard. But in this life, I don't want to be like that, man. Like, the world sucks, man. And we can change that shit. I know that sounds corny, but you have the power to change your universe. Like I said, right now, as you're living and breathing, you can decide how to mold your existence. And what you have to remember, though, you're not molding just yours. Yeah. It's like the ultimate fucking ripple effect. And you basically be like, what ripples do I want to fucking put out there? Good or bad, like, it's crazy shit, man. Like, meet a girl, you fall in love with a girl, she don't give a fuck about you. You stick with her. You do this and this and that. Or you could fight through all that, let it go, change your fucking dimension, man. Like, meet someone else. You could cut all that bullshit out of your life. It's all up to people. But people do what they do. So they create this fucking universe, bastards. Like, they don't get that. Like, and that's concrete. Like, that's just basic common logic, man. Like,
I was a big influence on that one.
Fucking Edgar out here putting the waves on our fucking reality, bastard. Doing Edgar shit.
Hey, somebody had to do it.
Apparently. But anyway, I don't know what else we can talk about on this. I don't know. It could go on and on.
It can, but...
What time is it?
I don't even know, bro.
Let me see how long we rattled on this bitch for.
It's 2:16.
We've gone for 54 minutes, so we'll make it an even an hour.
Yeah.
We got a few more minutes. What else we can talk about? Last minute things. Mandela effects. Random shit.
Well, time traveling, can it also, like, somehow affect?
I don't know. I've always seen, it could be, but I always see the Mandela. Okay. Well, Mandela, rub it in with multiverse theory. Hopping dimensions, multiple outcomes. I guess in a sense, depends on which one you're talking about. Like with time travel, that's a whole nother ball game. It's not the same as jumping dimensions. Like you're going sideways. You're not changing an event. Like
What if you think you are time traveling, but you're just jumping dimensions?
well, technically, in a sense, if you can, like I said, it goes back to what is time travel? What rules does it follow? Does it follow Back to the Future rules, or does it follow this movie over here's rules, or the Avengers where you can't change nothing? Which one? Which one is correct? You don't know. But
Or what
in
if
general,
they all fucking wrong?
that's what I'm saying. In
Or
general,
what if they're all right?
time travel, yes. If you could change stuff, then you do, in a sense, make new universes. So that there's like I see it as two ways to do it. Like if I had a machine right here that opened a window and I can step through this window and I'm in the same room, but the machine tells me you're in dimension 487826, or in this dimension you did this, where it would look, smell, well, relatively it would be the same, almost down to the fucking most minute detail, but it's not the same. But I'm not traveling time.
Yeah,
It's the same moment, same space, everything.
that's what
you know?
that's what I'm talking about.
I could open a window and then I could be looking through it. It's the same room, but it's completely decorated different. We don't live here. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the most drastic ones that you would see.
Yeah,
For all the nerds out there, here's a suggestion. If you like this kind of stuff, look up the old TV series Sliders. I'm gonna track that show down. I didn't finish watching it. There's like 4 or 5 seasons, I think. It came out in like '93, and it's interesting. It talks about what we're talking about. It's not time travel. They talk about the guy Quaid or whatever his name is, Quill. He creates a portal that he was testing. I think he wasn't trying to do dimensions. He was trying to do something else, but he ends up going to another dimension, and he gets stuck to where basically the whole point of the show is he's jumping dimensions at the end of every episode, trying to trying to get back home. And it talks about all the crazy changes. In one world, Elvis was still alive and crazy shit like that.
well, like The Flash, that's another show that does interdimension.
See,
travel.
I like shows and stuff like that. That's why I liked Rick and Morty, because it talks about dimensions and possible outcomes, and they I don't know, they'll probably crank it up, but they do even more. But they did some funny shit where they talk about how whatever his dimension is, whatever it was, they fucked it up and turned them all into mutants.
Yeah.
So he said, we didn't fuck this dimension up, so we're just gonna go to another one.
But he said that they only had this certain amount of.
Yeah, he
dimensions
goes,
where they
this
could
is
do
the only
that.
one we could find to where these guys killed themselves, so we take their spot. Like, again, I guess there's only a certain number of outcomes that can match what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So it's pretty damn neat. But yeah, look up Sliders. You can probably find other movies about alternate dimensions. There's another one I was telling Edgar about. Interesting fucking movie. It was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is. It's about a girl. She's a scientist, and her and her buddy, they're working in the lab, and they create this box. And the box, they literally, I guess they can travel to, there's another dimension, a mirror dimension of their world. And they finally make contact with it because the her from the other world, they're doing the same thing. So they basically can travel between the two worlds through this box,
Yeah.
a teleporter box. And in this world, her husband's dead, and that one he's alive, and so that world's a little off, and so they end up mixing. It's a really neat movie.
Then in other words, like some type of Twilight Zone type of shit too.
Twilight Zone's another good one. There was one on there about a pilot, the original series from the 60s. He was a pilot. He was an astronaut. He goes into space, and there was an accident. He disappears, and the army guys like, where the fuck did he go? And then later, the next day, his ship's parked, and he don't remember nothing. And so it's about time, about dimensions. I don't want to give it away, but it's a really neat episode. I don't remember what it was called.
I don't know if the Outer Limits have done
Probably
anything
so.
like that.
But again, whatever we've said on here, these are just kind of my opinions. I'm not saying this is concrete. None of this is.
It's all concrete. It's all true.
Fuck you if you don't believe it. But it's just what do they call it? A coffee shop discussion type thing. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting. But I think it's fresh, so it's on a nerd thing. And just sit and think about it when you're bored. You know, it ain't about, don't obsess over it to where it makes you not happy with your own life, where you're like, man, I'm a loser now. And sitting there thinking, oh, somewhere else I'm way more great or whatever. Don't think of it like that, you know, because you don't fucking know. Again, it could all be bullshit.
You could be a bigger loser than the other one.
Yeah, it could always be worse. That saying can never go out of style. It can always be worse. Like, you could be a homeless bastard with AIDS and diseases, you're sick, you're crippled, no telling what. It could always be worse.
Yeah.
Because if this theory holds true, there's an infinite number of possibilities. So be happy with where you're at, man. And if you're not, change it. Like I said, you can change it. Like,
Stop doing drugs, bitch.
not trying to preach. I'm just saying, hey, man, you hate your job, quit that motherfucker. Oh, it's easy for you to say, I got this or I got this. You can work it out, man. Like, make it happen. You know, if you want something bad enough, you'll battle through the bullshit to get where you want to get, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a nut. I got mania. There's so many things in my life that I'm interested in that I want to do, that I always said that I can't live enough lifetimes, because I was like, but I hope that I did do all these things. I want to write. I like to draw. I like making comic books. I like acting. I like fucking video games. I like music. All this stuff that I would love to pursue and be successful at, but I never will, because I pull myself in too many directions because I have like the mania, like I said, you know. But I always hope that maybe out there somewhere I did. You know, the books that I wrote, that when I die, I don't take it all with me. You know,
Yeah.
but it don't have to be that way for y'all. You know, if there's something you have, say you're writing a book, remember that. Don't take it with you. Don't sit there and bullshit and just fucking kick over and deny giving it to the world. Like, if you think you got something fresh and you got people hating on you, don't worry about it. No, fuck them, dude. Like, if you believe something you got, fucking try your best to make that reality. You can create that dimension.
Yeah.
Like, and that's legit, dude. Like, that's legit fucking...
Like I told Evil, I'm gonna write a book called 50 Shades of Brown.
Well, they can technically make it exist. Like, it can be done. A lot of this may be bullshit. It may be just we're all blowing smoke up our ass. I mean, this could be just a concrete reality. This could be a fucking video game. We don't fucking know.
We're in the Matrix.
We could be in the Matrix. We could be in Space Grand Theft Auto 5, like where it's just a sandbox game. Some asshole sitting on a couch in space somewhere in the future
Or just
playing
a TV
us.
show.
That's scary. Like, you know,
Like
like,
in Rick and Morty, bro.
yeah. Who knows? But it's interesting, man. This kind of shit, it keeps your brain working, man. So keep thinking about it, man.
Yeah.
Don't feel weird to think about weird shit, man. Because, again, you don't know. All right, anyway, I think we've rambled enough. I'm sure there's a lot more we could have hit on with this.
Could've.
Maybe I'll come back to it. Maybe we'll do a part 2 when I get Rob and get some other people here and get their input on it. But so right now, this is
Man, fuck Rob.
this is Multiverse Theory, Part 1. I'll just leave it at that. Next week, we'll have a new topic. Maybe have some guests here. I might play some music, maybe. Like, maybe play some new music from us, or maybe do a review. I don't fucking know. We'll figure something out. We're just kind of,
Give him a preview of something.
yeah, we're just freestyling this shit, so I don't fucking know. But anyway, I'm out. Got your hour. I think I did, so we'll see you next time.
This has been the Midnight Hour podcast, brought to you by Cemetery Records. Please join us next time. Goodbye.